Okay, so I finished my last treble crochet into my last stitch. Now I'm back to the body, and I'm going to do a slip stitch into the stitch right before the other feather. So I'm skipping 3 stitches on the body, and then I'm going to work a slip stitch into that next stitch, and then I'm going to finish off. Just yarn over and pull enough yarn through for a little bit of sewing and burying into the work. So now we have 2 of the feathers done. Now you're going to start with the green, and you're going to do the same thing. You're going to skip 1, 2, 3, 4, and then in that 5th stitch on the body, you're going to grab the green yarn and then chain 1, tie your knot, and like I said, you can make your feathers whatever size that you want. I'm going to go ahead and make this one a little bit longer, so I'm going to chain a 40. 1, 2, 3. So I'm going to finish my chain of 40 and then come back. Okay, so after you do your chain, and I made mine a chain of 40, then I'm going to do a single crochet into the second chain from the hook. So just like we did the other feathers, I'm going to do 2 single crochet, 1 single crochet into each of the next 2 stitches, and then I'm going to do a half double crochet into the next 2 stitches. So 1 half double crochet into the next 2 stitches. Then I'm going to do a double crochet into the next 2 stitches. So 1 double crochet into the next 2 stitches. And then I'm going to do a treble crochet into the rest of the stitches back to the body. And then come back when you reach the body, and then I'll show you how to make the next. Okay, so with I finished my last treble crochet into the last stitch. So now I'm going to skip 3 stitches on the body, and then I'm going to do a slip stitch into the last stitch, and then I'm going to finish off. And then we're going to do the last large feather for the tail. So we've done 3. We're going to do the last gold one. So again, skip 1, 2, 3, 4, and then you're going to put your crochet hook through the 5th stitch and grab your gold color, and then chain 1, and then turn the work over to tie a knot. And then for this last one, I'm just going to do a chain of 20. Whoops, grab the loose yarn end. So let me fix this, but go ahead and make a chain of 20 and then come back, and then I'll help you get started with the end of the feather. Okay, so I made a chain of 20, and again you're going to do a single crochet in the second chain from the hook, and then a single crochet in the next stitch, and then 1 half double crochet into the next 2 stitches, then a double crochet into 2 stitches, And then you're going to do one treble crochet into every stitch back across. So yarn over twice, go into the next stitch, bring up a loop, 4 loops on the hook, yarn over and go through 2, 3 loops on the hook, yarn over and go through 2, 2 loops on the hook, yarn over and go through 2. So I'll do one more treble crochet with you. And then go ahead, finish doing a treble crochet into every stitch back to the body, and then come back. Okay, so I finished my last treble crochet in my last stitch, so I'm going to slip stitch it to the body just like we've done before. And then you're going to go ahead and finish off. Now, before we sew the tail feathers together, I'm going to show you how to make the smaller tail feathers. So we're going to set this aside for a minute. And then I'm going to show you with the gold. So you're just going to take and fold the gold colored yarn over on itself to form a loop. And then take your crochet hook, put it right through the loop, hold the base of the loop with your middle finger and your thumb, and then you're going to yarn over, turn the hook upside down, and go through that loop for a slip knot. Then you're going to make a chain of 10. So here's my chain of 10. Now you're going to do a chain 1 for the next row, and then you're going to go into the second chain from the hook for a single crochet. So in the next stitch, you're going to do one more single crochet. And then we're going to do 1/2 double crochet into the next 2 stitches. And then you're going to do a double crochet into the next 2 stitches. So 1 double crochet in the next 2 stitches. And then you're going to do a treble crochet in the rest of the stitches. So yarn over twice, go into the next stitch, bring up a loop, and then we have 1 stitch left. Finish my last treble crochet. And this is how your work should look. And then you're going to finish off, just yarn over and pull enough yarn through for sewing onto the work. So now you're going to need a total of 2 gold colors, just like this, and then 2 of the green colors. And what we're going to do is we're going to sew them on in the front. So 2 gold small feathers and then 2 green, make them all the same, and then come back. Now you should have all of your little feathers made. We're going to go ahead and set those aside for now. And we're going to take our tapestry needle and we're going to sew the feathers together. So I'm going to start with the gold. And I'm just going to go towards the back of the rooster with the gold colored yarn. And then just turn the rooster over so the wrong side is up. And then you're going to take and sew the top part of the back of the stitches. So here I'm just grabbing the top part of both of the back of the stitches so that you can't see it on the other side that you're sewing it together. And we're not sewing it all the way down. We're just sewing a few of the stitches together. I'm just going to do a couple more. And then I'm going to tie a knot. And then I'm going to take my loose yarn end and bring it back towards the center. And just leave it towards the center because we're going to bury all the loose yarn ends onto the inside. So you can bring some of your loose yarn ends in. And I'm just going to sew the end of the feather to the body with my loose yarn end. And then you can take and tie a knot. And then just put all the loose yarn ends towards the center. And you're going to do that with all of your tail feathers. So I'm just going to show you how I do it. I'm doing it the same way. Sewing just a little bit of the tail feathers together. You can leave whatever amount of feather hanging down that you want. So I'm just going to sew one more. Now I'm just going to tie a knot. And then I'm going to bring the loose yarn end back towards the body. And I'm just going to tie a knot here just to secure it. And then I can use my gold to sew the body to the end of the feather. So go ahead and sew the last feather together the same way and then come back. So now this is how your tail feathers should be looking. So you just sewed a little bit of the portions of the tails together. Now you're going to take your smaller feathers and you're just going to sew them at the base of the larger feathers. So just take your tapestry needle and just sew them at the base. Make sure that you alternate the colors. So if you have a darker green color, then you sew the gold. You sew the gold one at the base. And then you just sew them in place. And what I did was I didn't sew just the tips. I just sewed up a couple of stitches And then I just sewed across. And then back down. And then I just tie a knot on the back. And don't worry about all of these loose yarn ends, because we're going to put them all into the center when we're done, and then we're going to sew them, hide them with the back cover. So you just tie your knot. And then leave all the loose yarn ends towards the center. And then go ahead and sew each of the small feathers in place. So now, since the larger feather is gold, you're going to sew your green one at the base, and then yellow, and then green, and then come back. So now you should have all your feathers sewn on to the rooster, and you can go ahead and turn the rooster over. You can see all the fun loose yarn ends. Just put them right into the center. And then you're going to take your second piece that you made, and the part that has the loose yarn end is the wrong side. And you're just going to take so that the right side is facing up, and just align it to the back. And then you're going to take, if you left a long end for sewing, you can use that, or just grab your 100% cotton white yarn and your tapestry needle. And then you're just going to sew the backing on, just like you did for the head. You're just going to take the top stitch from the front and the back, and just be careful as you're sewing it on that you don't mess up the design on the other side. But you just go in and out, sewing the back of the body to the front, and at the same time you're getting rid of all those loose yarn ends on the inside. So you just keep sewing in and out, and then go ahead and check the front as you're sewing, because you want to make sure that the front still looks okay. And at the same time, make sure that your loose yarn ends are being buried as you work. So go ahead and sew the front to the back, and then come back when you're done. Now when you get to the back of the head, make sure you don't go all the way to the front and mess up the front design. So what you're going to do is just take your tapestry needle, and you're only going to get the back and the front part of the white portions of the body as you're sewing. So I'm finishing up. This is my last bit. Then I'll show you how to tie a knot, and then bury your last yarn end. Okay, so now the body is completely sewn together. So I'm just going to take and tie a knot on the back. So I'm just going to grab a stitch, go through the loop to tie a knot, and then you're just going to take your loose yarn end and make sure you're only weaving it through the back and not through the front. Yep. And then once you've buried it in the back, go ahead and cut it. And now you have the back that looks nice and the front. So you can stop here if you're just making the pot holder. Actually, I'm going to show you how to do the feet first. Now to make the feet, you're going to go to the bottom of your rooster and you're going to go in 2 stitches from the end, the bottom end, 2 stitches in, and just take your crochet hook and go through a stitch. You're going to hook the gold colored yarn or whatever you use for the main color of your rooster, and make sure you leave enough loose yarn end for burying, and then do a chain 1 and then turn your work over to tie a knot. Now you're just going to flip it back over and you're going to make a chain of 8. 1, 2, so a chain of 8. And then you're going to do a single crochet in the second chain from the hook. Bring up a loop, yarn over and go through both for a single crochet. You're going to do 1 single crochet into 3 stitches. Then you're going to do a slip stitch into the next stitch. So go into the next stitch. You're going to yarn over and bring the yarn through both loops on your hook for a slip stitch. Then you're going to chain 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Then you're going to do a single crochet in the second chain from the hook. And you're going to do a single crochet all the way back to the stitch where you made a slip stitch. And then you're going to do a slip stitch into that stitch. So now I'm back to the stitch where I did a slip stitch. So I'm going to do another slip stitch. And then you can see how you're making the feet, the claws. I'm going to do one more. 1, 2, chain 2, 3, and 4. Again, chain 4. Then you're going to do a single crochet in the second chain from the hook. And you're going to do a single crochet all the way back to the stitch where you did a slip stitch. And then you're going to slip stitch into that stitch. And then you're going to do a single crochet into the next stitch. And that's the stitch that's headed back towards the body. So 1 single crochet into every stitch back towards the body. And then you're going to slip stitch in the next stitch over on the body. So go into that next stitch over on the body, yarn over and bring the yarn through both loops on the hook for a slip stitch. And then you're going to finish off. You're going to yarn over and pull enough yarn through to sew, because just a little bit, to sew a small amount, because we're going to sew the claw together. I'm going to show you what I mean. So just pull it snugly to form a knot, and then take your tapestry needle and then you're going to take, you can see where the slip stitch area created a little bit of a hole. So you're going to take the long end that you left for sewing and just weave your way to that stitch. And then you're just going to grab the stitch above and below that hole and then just close it. and then you have a nice foot. So now you can tie a knot. So go ahead and go towards the wrong side. Bring your tapestry needle through, and then turn your work over. And then you're going to weave the loose yarn end through to your other loose yarn end. Straighten out your foot. Then you're going to tie a knot. Make sure your foot stays straight as you're tying your knot. And then after you tie your knot, you're just going to take your loose yarn ends, and then you're going to go in right where you tied your knot. Make sure that you're only going through the back and not through to the front. Let me make sure it's not showing or sewed on to the front. And then once you bury your loose yarn end, you can cut it. So go ahead, bury your other loose yarn end, and then you're going to make another foot right about skip 2 stitches on the body, and then in the 3rd stitch make another foot just like you did on this one, and then you're done. So now you should have your rooster all done with the feathers and the feet. And you could stop here if you're just doing the pot holder, but if you want to make a towel topper, I'm going to show you how to do that. Now we're going to make the button or the button strap to hold the kitchen towel onto the oven. So you're going to take whatever color you want of yarn that you want for your strap for the kitchen towel. The first thing we're going to do is just fold it over on itself to form a loop. And then I'm using my J crochet hook. Just hold the base of the loop with your middle finger and thumb. Then yarn over, turn the hook upside down, and go through that loop for a slip knot. And then you're going to make a chain of 10. 1, 2, so after you finish your chain of 10, we're going to move up to the next row. So you're going to make a chain of 3. 1, 2, 3. That's going to count as your first double crochet. Then you're going to do a double crochet into the 4th stitch or chain from the hook. So yarn over, go into the 4th chain from the hook, which is the stitch I was holding from the previous row. Bring up a loop, 3 loops on the hook, yarn over and go through 2, and then yarn over and go through 2. And now you're going to do 1 double crochet into every stitch across, and then come back. Now your work should look like this. We're going to move up to the next row, so you're going to chain 3, 1, 2, 3, then turn your work, and here at the base of that chain 3 that you made, there's a little bit of an upslope. You're not going to go in that stitch with the upslope. You're going to go into the next stitch over. So you're going to yarn over, go into the next stitch over, bring up a loop, and then do another double crochet. And then do 1 double crochet into every stitch back across. Now go ahead and finish 8 rows, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 of 1 double crochet into every stitch. And then once you finish that, go ahead and finish off. Just yarn over and pull enough yarn through to bury into your work. Now you're going to fold the bottom of your towel the length and width that you want it, and then take your rooster and you're going to place the rooster. I'm placing mine to where the side of the body is at the edge of the top of the towel, and then you can see the top of the towel is about halfway for mine on the one white side of the body. And then you can see the other side, I have some of the tail, about a couple inches where the tail is hanging on the other side of the towel. And then you're going to take your tapestry needle with the 100% cotton white yarn, and then you're going to start from the back. You're going to go through the back of the towel into the body. Make sure you leave enough loose yarn end on the back for burying into your work. And then you're just going to sew the body to the towel. Make sure you tie a knot on the back. And then make sure that your rooster doesn't become crooked. And then you're just going to take and sew the towel to the body. And I just want to show you how I folded the back of my towel. So here you can see how the back of my towel is folded and how my stitches look on the back. And then you're just going to stitch right across, and then you're going to change colors and do the yellow or the green color for the rest of the towel. Now my rooster is sewn onto the towel, and you can't tell that it's been sewn on. And then on the back you can see my stitches across the back and where I changed to gold. And I'm just going to show you how I buried my loose yarn ends. Just take your tapestry needle onto the loose yarn end, and then you're going to go right in where you tied your knot, just through the back part of the towel, one flap of it. You don't have to go through all of it. And then just cut the loose yarn end. And then your loose yarn ends are buried. No one can see them. And now we're going to work on the strap. Now you're going to get your strap and your gold colored yarn and tapestry needle. And you're going to turn the rooster over. And you're going to take the strap and you're just going to sew it first along the bottom. So you take your tapestry needle, just grab part of the back of the body and the bottom of the strap, and again just leave enough loose yarn end for tying a knot and burying into your work. And then go ahead and just finish sewing the back strap and the top part stitch of the body together, and then come back. Now you should have the strap sewn on. Go ahead and lay the head back down, and you're just going to take your tapestry needle with the gold colored yarn and just sew the neck and then part of the head to the strap. And just make sure that you leave enough loose yarn end for tying a knot. And you can just go right along the edge of the neck. And just sew it in place so the neck and the head won't flop around. And then tie a knot on the back, and then bury all of your loose yarn ends, and then come back. Now you have the neck sewn onto the strap. You're going to take your green yarn now and put it onto your tapestry needle, And then you're going to take the top feather and sew it to the side of the strap. So just take the stitch on the feather and the stitch on the strap, and you can tie a knot. And you're just going to sew a couple of the stitches together. And after sewing a couple of the stitches together, go ahead and tie a knot. And then you're just going to weave the loose yarn end back to the beginning. That way you can tie a knot with the beginning loose yarn end. And then you can just bury your loose yarn ends. Making sure not to go into the front. Now we're going to sew the button onto the back of the strap. So here's the back of the head of the rooster, and here's my button. And I'm going to use my yarn threader and my small tapestry needle. So I'm just going to put my hook through the eye of the tapestry needle, and then I'm going to hook the same colored yarn as my strap and bring that through. And a good way to make sure to help bring it through is to just jiggle it up and down, and that brings it right through. And then you're just going to take and go through. You can use a sewing needle and thread if you want, if you don't have a tapestry needle. And then you just take and sew your button on. I'm just going to go one more time. And usually you just need to go a second time. Tie another knot. And then I take my tapestry needle, go through, and then I'm just going to bury my loose yarn end. So go ahead, bury your other loose yarn end, and then come back. Now you should have your buttons sewn on, and the last step is just the button strap. So you just take your crochet hook, and I'm going to go in 1, 2, 3, 4 stitches in. I'm going to hook my same colored yarn as the strap, chain 1, and then tie a knot. And then you're going to make a chain of 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And then I'm going to count in 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. And then I'm going to slip stitch into the next stitch. So I'm going to yarn over and then bring the yarn through both loops on my hook for a slip stitch. And then I'm going to yarn over to finish off. Just bring enough yarn through to bury into the work. And then you have your strap. So go ahead, bury your loose yarn ends, and then come back. And you are all done. On the back, you can see how the strap will close on the button. And that's your rooster.